is a constant battle. I tune into EARNEST Prattle. It will brighten even your darkest day.
Prattle edition 28, and today, or I should say this evening actually, we're talking to the amazing, talented indie rock queen, who's also a very good friend of mine. It's Keeley Moss.
Hello, Paul. It's lovely to see you.
How you doing, Keeley?
I'm doing good, thank you. A slightly frenetic, frantic pace because there's just a lot going on. But I'm happy but I'm not quite in the haze of a drunken hour because I never drink.
Well, heaven knows we'd be miserable enough. You probably was, but it is rather miserable outside at the moment with the rain there. But don't let it get to our spirits down, because what I want to do is to kick off with is I know we did a EARNEST Prattle edition 16, which is available for everyone to view on YouTube if you want to see that.
Yeah.
It's the last time we spoke to you, Keeley, which was back in May 2021. And we had a really long conversation about what you're all about and the connections with Inga Maria Hauser. So if people want to get the full story on that, that's available to view always. But just as an overview, so if somebody's looking at this video for the first time, just to give a brief overview, in relation to Inga Maria Hauser, who's the German backpacker, I believe she was 18 years old.
Yeah.
Right, so she was murdered in Northern Ireland in 1988.
That's right.
So just so people know, she's the subject matter of all the musical songs you write, basically.
She is. She inspires everything that I write. So her inspiration fuels my life, because my life is my art. So yeah, she's the centerpiece and the fulcrum of my existence, you know. And artistically, she kind of provides all of the inspiration and source material that I draw from in creating kind of an immersive world as a tribute to her life, and kind of a connection with the past. And
like I say, originally you wrote about Inga Maria Hauser via, is it the Keeley Chronicles?
Yeah, that's right. That was my blog. Well, that is my blog, which if I had time, I would be publishing even more installments of. It's up to 36 installments at the moment,
Right.
and it's a very in-depth resource in terms of the information and the history of the case and all sorts of aspects of it, and it's very multifaceted. And this everything about Inga's life, the case, the investigation, the many very winding ways that the case has developed and progressed or not over the years, and also my own journey in relation to Inga's journey, because I actually retraced Inga's steps, went all over England and Scotland and Northern Ireland to retrace her movements, and I covered that in parts 21 to 34 of the Chronicles. That took 13 months to write because each part tackles a separate leg of the journey. So yeah, it's very in depth and kind of, I suppose
that's an understatement. You're very dedicated the cause there, Keeley. But for people that would like to see a concentrated, overview of the whole story, I believe is there a Netflix documentary? Is it called Murder in Badlands?
That's right. Yeah, the most definitive visual document on Inga's case is Murder in the Badlands, episode 2. Basically, Murder in the Badlands is a 4-part miniseries documentary, which delves into the cases of 4 unsolved murders of young women in Northern Ireland. That spans the period from the 1970s up to the 2000s, actually. And Inga's case is covered in part 2, and I contributed to it amongst a number of other kind of significant figures in relation to Inga's case and those who've worked on Inga's campaign over the years. And so that was broadcast on the BBC One last year, 2022.
Well, I watched it on catch up just because of you, Keeley. It was fantastic, to be fair.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was repeated on BBC One again this year, and then it was recently, just in the last week, it has been made available on Netflix, where it's actually trending at the moment. So, yeah, it seems to be getting quite the response, which is hopefully really, really good for coverage.
There's a version on YouTube as well. And what I'll do is I'll pop a link to that in the titles after our video.
Yeah.
So people can catch up with that. Like I say, we filled out the details of what you do in relation to Inga in our first vlog. So I don't want to go over all that again in detail, but there's one interesting thing I would like to know is in relation to who actually did this atrocity. Did they anywhere get anywhere, or is it ongoing? I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Keeley? Is it like a dead end, or do you think we'll ever come to a conclusion of who actually did it?
Well, knowing who was responsible is one thing.
Proving it.
Then proving it and it, proceeding to a court of law, and for the evidence to be tested in a court of law is another thing. With a murder trial, there's a very, very high threshold that has to be met in order for a case to proceed to court. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it's just one of those things that has to that there's a level where a case has to be so loctite. And unfortunately, that threshold hasn't quite been met in Inga's case. There are several, how do I say it? I'm gonna have to choose my words carefully here for legal reasons, because one of the tenets of the justice system is that due process must be adhered to.
Absolutely correct.
Law is the law, and the last thing I would ever want to do would be to say anything that would jeopardize any potential.
No, absolutely correct. Once again, yeah.
What I can say, what I would say is there are several individuals who are suspected of involvement in Inga's murder, and they have been identified in relatively recent times, and the case against those individuals has strengthened over time, and as more information and more evidence has come to light, it has strengthened the suspicion of their involvement rather than having weakened it. There was, back in 2019, just goes to show just how justice, there's a term, slow justice, and it can be the case that many years after a murder, it can actually become possible for progress to be made, more so than at the time, you know, it would appear to be a lot easier to, you know, that there's the well-worn, well-known phrase in true crime circles that the more time elapses after a murder, the harder it becomes to solve. However, you know, various bonds and allegiances can weaken over time, and certain information can become available and can be conveyed far further after a murder has taken place, that can strengthen a case too. And that has been the case where Inga's case is concerned, so much so that it wasn't until 2019 where the very first evidence file was able to be submitted, where an evidence file was submitted to the Public Prosecution Service of Northern Ireland, the PPS, and unfortunately in 2020 they gave their ruling that 2020, 2021, whereby basically they were unable to proceed with the case as it stands due to lack of evidence. But that is where the case is at the moment. There are certainly persons of interest to the inquiry who there's quite a significant amount of information and evidence in relation to, but not enough to meet the very high threshold for there to be reasonable expectation of conviction in court. So that's where the case is at. So the case, I don't feel as hopeful as I did back in 2018 when I felt extremely hopeful. But I'm a very positive person generally. And I think if you look of Inga's case over the 35 years since the case had its inception all the way back in 1988, one of the characteristics of Inga's case that I've, you know, recognized and kind of identified it has been the extraordinary staying power of Inga's case and the tenacity for Inga's case to survive and not just to, you know, remain dormant forever, but it always manages to resurrect. Every few years something happens. I can list a number of instances where the case is seen dead and buried, and then suddenly out of nowhere something has happened to resurrect it and to bring it back into the public domain, back into the public eye, and then perhaps it has fallen fallow for a number of years, and then again something unexpected out of the blue will occur that resurrects Inga's case. So me looking at it from my mindset, I would think that that is a very hopeful thing. That why would this case continually recur in terms of being, you know, re-entering the public consciousness and public domain and media focus and public interest? Why would that recur so many times only for it to remain unsolved? You know, I still think that it's almost as if sometimes that there's a mysterious, you know, mystical life force that's incubating this case and stopping it from falling into dormancy for good.
Well, I mean, that's not dwell on the negatives. That's one of the positives. That Inga will never die while you're walking the planet, to be fair, Keeley. And all the positive things that happen in your life just means that we're never going to forget the memory of her, because it's such an integral part of everything you do. So, what I'd like to do now is, like I say, for everybody who wants to know more about that, please check out the documentary, the BBC documentary, Murdering in Badlands, episode 2, and it is available on Netflix as well. But I did say the first time we spoke was back in May 2021.
Yeah.
And your personal music career at the time was sort of bubbling under. And you had a few irons in the fire and a few things that were coming to fruition after all your hard work. But what I'd like to do now is just talk about your last year, because I think you've kind of like blown up a little bit, to be fair, Keeley. And I think things are going in the right direction for you. So what have you been up to in 2023, Keeley? What's the year been like for you?
Well, it's been best year of my life so far. Undoubtedly, so much has happened. The year started with what could be perceived to be a negative, and I suppose part of my indomitable nature is like I don't allow setbacks to deter me or to prevent me from pushing forward and pushing on. So at the beginning of the year, the previous lineup of my band came to an end, very amicably and very naturally. I wanted to tour and gig in the UK, where the majority of the interest in what I do is, but my bandmates just found the prospect of going back over to the UK just too tiring, and
Right.
they just wanted to stay in Ireland and have their family life and do what they do in Ireland. So I faced the prospect of having to form having gone through finding these bandmates, rehearsing the set, working on arrangements for 2 years, and all of the intricacies that go into building a live set. I found myself suddenly having to go start afresh, even though I still had my record deal and my manager and my producer and my various supporters that I kind of built up, but I suddenly had to find a new band. And also I was going into hospital in January of this year, to 2023, to have major surgery. But the funny thing was that both of those things coincided, in that while I was in hospital, a mate of mine, Stephanie, came to visit me with her boyfriend, Lukey. And while we were talking, I mentioned the fact that I was, going to be putting together a new band, and I was going to try and put together a new band in the UK. And Lukey said that he'd be happy to play bass with me. And then I was doing a solo gig around that time, just before then, in London. And the head of the label, Brian, he approached Tom Fenner of Micro Disney, the band Micro Disney, who were on Rough Trade and were on Virgin Records. They were on Rough Trade at the same time as the Smiths. Obviously, one of my favorite bands ever, Micro Disney and the Smiths. And Tom said that he'd like to play drums with me. So suddenly I had a new band, and I was lying in hospital, trying to overcome kind of major surgery, but at least I'd managed to. This new band had come about almost without any effort on my behalf at all. So it was a lovely thing. And when something falls into place like that, you feel this is a positive thing. It's like the universe is kind of helping bring it together and set the wheels in motion. So after that, I recovered from my surgery and rehearsed with my new bandmates and traveled over to England, and I'd become mates with Mickey Bereni from Lush, who's become such a huge support and a really, really kind soul in my life. And she's given me somewhere to stay whenever I've been in London, which has been really helpful, because I've been able to put this band together, rehearse and prepare this band for the road, and have somewhere to stay. And also then, so I released my debut album, or my debut full-length album, Floating Above Everything Else, in
So
June.
what was that again, Keeley?
What was that?
What's the album name again?
Floating Above Everything Else.
Oh, so I'm just going to do a bit of a product placement here.
Yeah.
Floating across the screen.
Good time.
Above everything else. Did anyone notice that, you think? And all I can say is, what a cracking stocking filler that'd be.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, it came out in the summertime, and I was kind of working on videos and working on artwork for it, and basically getting it together and recording it and everything in the first part of the year. We released it in the summertime, and it's got an amazing response. Got the album of the week on Louder Than War, and on Tom Dunn's show. Tom Dunn is an Irish broadcaster who'd be very well known in Ireland. He's kind of one of the main broadcasters in Ireland. Like
It's a cracking album. I love it.
Oh, I'm so glad you like it.
But I've been going through it though, and I did notice on here there appears to be a slight mistake, Keeley, because I can't see anywhere at all where it says thanks to Paul Wardle on anywhere. I think it might have been a printing mistake or an error or something.
Oh dear.
No hints for the follow-up, Keeley, but I just thought that maybe, obviously, you must have forgotten that part accidentally.
But
Don't
see,
worry about it, Keeley.
The thing is, what I tend to do, because if I thanked everyone in my life, there'd be no space for lyrics. It would just be endless thank yous. And I have to think, obviously, in terms of the audience as well.
Don't take any notes to me, Keeley. That made you laugh. That's the main thing.
But yeah, I think the other thing is that what I tend to do with albums is that anyone who's directly contributed to the recording and the actual making of the album, they're the only people that I kind of have space to thank on the record. So there's obviously so many other people that I would love to thank.
Correct.
But I just want to get them all.
Oh, no, do you know what? I was absolutely flabbergasted that you give me a shout out at the first gig.
Oh, at the gig in London. Yeah, well, I was
happy to. Bless you.
Yeah, well, that was the thing about that. It wasn't my first gig in London, but it was our first gig of our tour. First gig of our
UK tour, yeah, the one at the Dublin Castle.
The Dublin Castle, yeah, that was a lovely night, and thank you for coming. It was great to. It was a beautiful way to kick off the tour, to start in London and then to progress from there. We played in Bristol with the Darling Buds, which was an amazing gig.
Talking about the current tour, the very recent tour, and I was recollecting my fantastic first viewing of you live in concert, and I thought it was actually quite apposite that for your first UK tour, the first song you played was Last Words. Rather than First Words, it's Last Words to start the whole tour off. I thought that was very clever. But just for the viewers listening pleasure, you've given permission to stick that live version on the end of this video, which I will, if
Absolutely.
that's okay. So regarding your recent tour, Keeley, what would you say was the highlights of the tour for you?
Oh, there's so many. Like literally, it's the best 2 weeks of my life so far, without a doubt. Because I'd been to America earlier this summer for the first time to do a radio promo tour for the record, because the record had gone to
How did that
radio.
go, by the way?
Oh, really, really good. That was just such a joy. And I loved all of it. I loved all the traveling and, just the sunshine. The sun shone most of the time, which is quite a revelation. Being Irish, being in Ireland, this sun rarely shines.
Yeah.
It was lovely, but it was great. My manager, Nick, was so good to me. He looked after me so well. And all the radio stations that I visited were really sweet and enthusiastic cats who worked there. And I did a radio session with a station called WFMU, which is based in New Jersey, and they have they're probably the biggest alternative station on the east coast of the USA. And I was told the audience listening figures on any morning to that station are in and around 300,000 people, and I was on my own. I didn't have my band with me because it's too expensive to tour the US as a band at the moment. So, and I was going over there for the first time, trying to kind of build things and stuff. So I had to do it on my own, and I'd only slept 2 hours because of a situation to do with something back home, to do with my living situation. So yes, it was quite the thing to go in there and you know, go in cold in the morning. It's never an ideal time for me to sing it early in the morning because I'm not a morning person. I'm very nocturnal and stuff. Anyway, but the station was great, and I just went for it and sang 6 songs live and did an hour-long interview, and it was so yeah. But it kind of it gave me real confidence and strength because you know, when you can play live to 300,000 people, you can do anything, or you feel you
Right.
can just do anything. That nothing daunts you after that. So yeah, that was great. But then the UK tour came not long after that, and you were asking what the highlight was.
Yeah.
Every day was a highlight. Like every day, like I think my favorite moment of the tour was probably, I mean, there's so hard, so many. One of my favorite moments
I
of the
know you're
tour
going to
was
say when you met me, Keeley, but don't embarrass me like that. Just pick something else, Keeley.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
what else was there? Yeah, so we played London, which the first night of the tour you were there. It was a brilliant gig, brilliant night. And then we played the second night of the tour. We played in Bristol with the Darling Buds. That was brilliant. And in between that, I'd gone out to Essex with my manager to do a radio session for a station called Phoenix FM, which you're
Okay.
probably aware they're based in Brentwood and Essex, and that was really nice. And the Bristol gig with the Darling Buds was incredible. They were so good live, and it was such a great night. And then we went on to I spent a few days in London, and then we went to Blackpool to stay for a night. We're going to be gigging in Blackpool soon, actually, but we weren't gigging that because we were on our way to Glasgow,
Yeah.
and we gigged. Glasgow was my first gig in Scotland ever, and that was there was some, you know, interesting things happening from a technical perspective on
Really.
stage, but it was the crowd were great, and it was a
Alistair
lovely occasion.
McDoodle didn't pull the plug out of there.
But it was great to see him. He's a lovely cat, Alistair McDougall, and I love that you guys know each other. He's a lovely cat, and his partner Liz is a lovely person as well.
It's a love-hate relationship because I told him once that I voted for the Tories once, and he's the most left-wing person I've ever met in my life. So we like to give each other a bit of a dig.
That's
But,
funny.
but it's all in good humour. There's nothing malicious.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, because you're both sweet cats. Like, yeah. So and then I did an in-store gig the next day in Glasgow in a place called Love Music Glasgow. Oh, the gig was in Glasgow was a place called Nice and Sleazy, and it was filmed and stuff. And then the next day I did an in-store in Glasgow in a record store called Love Music, which is a lovely place and lovely cats who run it. And then we went down to Manchester. We played in a venue in Manchester called Atma. That was incredible. That was again my first gig in Manchester, like a bit of a musical civilization, like the cradle, if you like, of.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we finished the tour in Leeds. But my favorite, if I had to pick one moment, just one to treasure out of all of the tour, and it's kind of it's probably going to sound a bit silly because it's like, it's going to sound so quite mundane, quite nondescript, but for me, it was so beautiful. We woke up in Manchester in the morning, myself and all my bandmates. We weren't in the same bed. We all had separate hotel rooms. But we went off to a record store in Manchester called Piccadilly Records,
Yeah.
the main major kind of record store in Manchester. And we went in, and I just spent just a couple of hours just browsing in there, and the feeling of being alive and being healthy.
You get on well with Bosbury, you were with that type of interest in vinyl.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so basically, but I found my floating above everything else. My record was there. My manager Nick found his band's record there, and then we bought the new Slow Dive record, and I was talking to the cats who run the store. They were lovely fellas who were also in bands, and just the feeling of being on the road and doing this thing I wanted to do my whole life, and being in Manchester and preparing to play in Leeds later that day. It was the happiest moment of my life, honestly.
That's do you know something? It must be such a buzz to go into a vinyl shop and see your own production set amongst the vinyl.
It is.
You must have felt like you had arrived at last.
I did, yeah, because I suppose because for a cat like me, and you'll understand this because you're this kind of like mindset. Music is everything.
Yes, correct.
So it's all I do. I don't watch the telly. I don't have like relationships. I don't have
Well, it's not
pets.
just me then.
No, it's just, yeah, no. But it's just, I'm just totally fixated on music, and I'm just absorbed in music, and I have to be, otherwise I can't do it, because it's a hard thing to do from an independent standpoint as an original artist. It doesn't rely on doing sets of covers, or it doesn't rely on, playing familiar material. But so I think being there, and even just a simple thing like walking around Manchester that morning in the sun with my new record that I bought that we bought of the Slowdive album. Just a simple thing, but walking around Manchester with my manager and the drummer and my band, just like listening out, walking around. It sounds so mundane, but that was the best moment of my life. That was it so far. So yeah.
So the future for Keeley, 2024. Well, in fact, the rest of this year. Have you got some more touring to do in this year as yet?
Yeah, there's another tour. We haven't announced it yet, but we've announced it called. We've announced several of the dates because we're kind of announcing the dates piecemeal. So the first date we're going to be playing in Bristol. That's our first headline in Bristol, because we opened for the Darling Buds there. We're never going to. We've been asked back by the same venue to do our own headline gig.
Excellent.
So we're going to be with a band called, with a cat called Hugmind, who's going to open for us, and a really cool band called Madame Mutante, who are going to open for us. And we're going to be playing with them in Bristol at a venue called the Thunderbolt on the 8th of November. Then we're going to be opening for Alan White from Morrissey's band, and actually a load of Morrissey's band members. Classic.
Oh yeah, I've seen your post on Facebook. That's pretty amazing. I know Alan White and those guys.
Oh wow,
They're
brilliant.
Absolute fantastic bunch, and once again, I'm made up.
Oh, thank you.
Honestly, when are you going to play with them guys?
Well, we start the tour with them on the 29th of November in Belfast. And that'll be my first gig in Belfast, actually, which I'm really excited about. And of course, playing the songs about Inga in Northern Ireland is going to have even greater resonance emotionally, for me, and for just to experience that, playing those songs in that place, because Belfast was where she wanted to reach. She was on her way when she arrived in Northern Ireland on the 6th of April 1988. She was on her way, or she thought she was on her way to Belfast. She arrived in Larne and had intended to go to Belfast and on to Dublin, where I'm from, but that just didn't happen. She was taken and driven in the opposite direction. So she never got to make it to Belfast, but she thought she was going there. So there's a lovely kind of bittersweet, quality of getting to play songs about her in Belfast. And then we play with them in Cork on the 1st of December. Then I'm going to be going back to, this is actually going to be, we're going to do 2 more dates. I'm going to actually mention them here. I haven't announced these yet, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. We're going to be playing the Dublin Castle again on the 9th of December, which is a matinee show at 2 p.m. I see how because I'm not an early kind of cat, I'm a late kind of cat who does stuff. So yeah, but for music I'll get up at any hour, or try to anyway. But so yeah, going to be playing in London on the 9th of December, and then we're going to finish the tour on the 10th of December in Blackpool, our first gig ever in Blackpool at the Waterloo in Blackpool. So yeah, we've got a 5-day tour coming up to close the year.
That's absolutely fantastic. You're keeping yourself really, really busy, plus your migration to the UK.
Yes, going to be doing that as well in between the now and the tour starting.
You're coming to join us in the green and pleasant land, aren't you, Keeley?
Yes, I will be coming to join you in the green and pleasant land.
And what's your hopes and aspirations for 2024 then, Keeley?
Well, my ultimate hope and aspiration in 2024, well, there's two things really. I mean, one, aside from all of the standard stuff, like I just hope I stay healthy and, you know, arrive alive. But in terms of kind of aims and objectives and stuff, I'm going to release my next album, which is going to be the second full-length album, Keeley album, which is
it going to be called Paul, I Like and Very Much Love You, Keeley?
Oh, that's very, very sweet of you. That's very
It's
sweet.
just an idea, bit out of left field there, but you know, throw it around, see what drops.
You're very sweet to say that. Thank you. But I think my main hope, my main goal for next year is to just gig constantly. Like, my ultimate dream for my next year is to gig 300 times in one calendar year. Genuinely, I'm not making that up. Like, genuinely, and I could do it. I know I could do it because I know the way I am, and my manager knows I can do it as well. Because I'm not like other cats, you know. I'm just all about. I'm married to the music, like so. Yeah, to gig.
So this time next year, Keeley will be onto the Guinness Book of World Records.
Well, we'll see. I hope so. But we'll see. I mean, like, you know, the thing is, like, obviously what I do best live in a band context. Not that I can't play solo, I can, and I have done, and I did it in America, but I prefer the way you saw us in the Dublin Castle. That's the way that I like to present myself live, and for the songs I think really need that band lineup, and we're going to be meeting a new drummer because our current drummer is going to be leaving us soon after the next tour ends in December. So hopefully we can get a new drummer in and get up to speed. Because yeah, there's lands to conquer, there's worlds there's worlds to play and gigs to play and other bands to play with, other cats to play with. You know, like I've loved all the bands that we've opened for so far. We opened for the Frank and Walters with my previous lineup in Dublin, and then we've obviously opened for the Darling Buds. We're about to open for Alan White, but I want to play with everyone. I want to play everywhere, and I want to just be on it all the time.
Know. This time in a couple of years, you'll be warming up for Morrissey, hopefully.
Oh yeah, well we'll see how. Yeah,
natural progression.
Yeah, well actually, it kind of would be at this stage if you think about it. Yeah, I wouldn't say no. To quote the great man back in the day in his Smiths era, 15 minutes with you, I wouldn't say no.
Absolutely, and also a publication by our Julie Hamill.
Indeed, that is going to be a momentous tome. Julie is a lovely lady, and I know you and she are good pals, and I was so delighted she came to our gig in London, and we got on like a house on fire. And she was she did a radio show recently on Times Radio, and she kind of picked me and New Order and Confidence Man as her kind of music picks, which was really, really sweet of her. So yeah, she's been great.
And you took a fantastic photograph of us three together.
That's right. Yeah,
I'm going to pop that on the end of the video as well because it's everyone needs to see that.
Oh, nice one. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, those big beaming smiles, especially Julie.
Absolutely.
But honestly, all I can say, Keeley, is thank you. Thank you for letting me remain a part of your life, if only a little, very small part. It's been an absolute amazing journey following you over the last couple of years and seeing how you're going from strength to strength. And you're on an upward trajectory, so I'm expecting big things from you still. So, yeah, you keep rocking out. And normally at the end of the videos, I ask people to say hello to my mum. But as you already did that on the last video, I'll tell you what, I attend a local charity, which is called the Baseford Disability Group. And I've got a young lady there, a friend called Eve, who's an absolute music. Well, she loves the music, basically. And I promised her that I would get you to say hello. So for Eve, Liz, and all the guys at the Baseford Disability Group, we just send them a quick hello, quick message, please, Keeley.
Of course I will. I'd be happy to. Hello, Eve and Liz and all at the Motor Disability Group. Sending you love from Ireland. And conclude, bliss out, don't miss out.
That was absolutely perfect, Keeley. Thank you very much.